What's good? I am Yish. You're watching New Leaves on Life. So, today is the day after I read after I finished the second part of Running on Empty that I spoke about in my last video, and I began to start on part 3 when there was a certain amount of tension in the air. So just to go back, what I didn't mention was that me and my wife are now empty nesters. So daughter is off. That was the last one in this house to be sent off, and we're empty nesters now. So it's just the two of us, me and all of my issues, and her having to deal with it. And so I was triggered the other day by an ongoing issue that I have with staying consistent with doing things. I spoke about that in the last video. Anyway, it triggered me, and it lasted for a couple of days, and it is one of the things that led me to pick the book back up, Running on Empty. I actually had gotten a reminder from a Facebook group that I'm in to look at the book, and I've had the book, like I said, for quite some time. But the tension that was in the air was so thick you can cut it with a knife, and she finally questioned why we weren't speaking to each other, and and the dialogue went from there. We probably talked for either 2 to 3 hours, just me expressing myself, right? Or expressing my my state, is I guess is the best way you can call that. I was expressing my state, and tying it into why I wasn't communicating, and just tired, man. I mean, I'm really tired of dealing with this state that I'm in. Anyway, I got to the beginning of part 3 of the book. Part 3 is where the work begins to change or to fill up the empty tank. And I can remember thinking to myself that the only way I'm gonna get around this is to deal with those things I keep running from. And it's very cliche. You hear it all day long. People tell you to face your fears. You gotta face up to what, you can't run from what's inside. You simply cannot, because it's always with you. And so I haven't gotten past the first couple of pages, because right where I got to, so real quick, it starts off with 3 things that that can basically stifle your progress. One is false expectations, thinking that this is going to be something that's a quick fix, and if you set that expectation and don't expect that this is going to take some time, you may find yourself getting off your square, which is still a natural process. But the second one, I know all too well: avoidance. When things become emotionally painful, I pretty much run away from that, avoid it at all costs, because it just throws me back into that state, that childlike state that I had, as a kid. Very painful. The third thing is discomfort, and the discomfort, of course, is the reason for avoidance. But as I'm beginning to really get past the first half of, because it was only 3 before we get to the next chapter, Before I even get past the first half of the third part of discomfort, rather, that's when my wife walked in and asked why we're not talking. And all I could tell her is exactly what I was feeling, and that was avoidance. I'm avoiding you. And that's really what our relationship has been a lot about, me avoiding her because of the various triggers that exist between the two of us. I had this innate just will to try to get this corrected, but at the same time I have a very terrible track record of staying focused, so it becomes a roller coaster ride. At any rate, today, right? So that was the other day. Today, I got a dose of what the book talks about for healing that part of you. And so one of those things, of course, is writing down how you feel, right? Being aware of when you're having an emotion. And I felt today in a scenario at work, being a supervisor, my employees were kind of getting at each other about some words exchanged that I believe was not intended to be what was said, but it was received in that manner. And so one person had some words that they were telling me, and the other two heard it. And when I left from that point to go and talk to my boss, and when I came back and got to my chair, I can hear that it was 2 against 1 at that point, and folks were getting sort of loud, not fighting, but voicing their opinions, and you can hear the passion in the air. And these are tenured folks, so they've been there for a while. Most of these folks have been there before me, and I've known them for a long time, and there's very little issues like this that come up. But today, I would say this is probably the second or third issue since I've been over this particular team in the maybe 3 years, almost 3 years since I've been over this team. And as I'm hearing the passions get louder, I feel somewhat terrified. And I don't mean terrified like somebody is running through the hallway with a gun. I mean terrified in just the fact that I am the boss, right? I am the supervisor. I'm the one in charge of watching over these group of people. And when situations like this come up, I have to be the responsible one to step in and quell the situation. The problem is I've never had the social skills and the practice of how to deal with these kind of situations. And it stems back to my childhood neglect of never knowing what to do when confronted. And I sat there for a couple of minutes, frozen. So they talk about fight, flight, or freeze. I sat there frozen because I didn't want to. I'm already sitting there emotional, feeling a certain amount of fear of putting myself out there in the middle of these people's passionate, or not passionate, because that don't sound right, but in the middle of these people's argument. And I didn't know what to say, but I had it in my mind that if I step into this situation, I'm going to look like a fool, and I'm going to feel worthless. It's going to be even more painful than what I was currently feeling. But the good thing is I've been taking cold showers for the last, well, I haven't really taken them on a regular for about a month, two months. But prior to that, for almost 2 months, 3 months straight, I had been taking cold showers, which helps you to be comfortable in situations of discomfort. And it's kind of chest sticking out for me. You know, I had to just stick my chest out there, focus, and I got that pulls me to get up out my chair, and that's what I did. I got out my chair. I went over to where the situation was being played out, and you know, I had to use my man voice. You know, I had to step that in there, and I had to get a little louder than everybody else because they weren't hearing me. And it's a little scary for me to do that. I've always not been able to use that part of my voice to really like project, because it always has came off as I'm challenging people, and not being comfortable around people means that doing such a thing, I am then challenging people, and I invite criticism and rejection and every other social negative energy that I can equate to from my childhood. And so it prevents me from doing that. And I recognize it. I'm kind of glad I'm thinking about that, because that is part of the problem, is that I have these beliefs within me about how situations will be, and they stop me from interacting in those situations. So today was day one. I wrote down how I felt. I wrote down, you know, what the emotion was, and I actually did something about it. And I recognize that this is the way out. This is how you get out. You have to face your fears if you plan to get out of the for me, get out of this unfeeling state, this feeling of apathy. And actually in the book it labels it as alexithymia, and I had to really think about it. It's not that I have a mental problem with emotions, it's that I stopped using them. And I really haven't used my emotions on a regular since those freeze moments, those frozen moments as a kid, because I've stayed away from people for the most part. And I've expressed myself through music, but that's not a social that's not a social construct that people communicate with on a day-to-day basis, right? So that's not enough. And most of what I've done throughout life really has been fake it till I make it. And all that has done has built up a false sense of security that it's a fragile shell that can easily be broken. And and just knowing that, that's what prevents me from really engaging and thriving in life like I should. So that's the update, man. The book really talks about writing your feelings down. You know, there's some various other things, and I'll speak about them as I go through them. But that's really the gist of it: is facing your fears, being there for yourself, and you know, working to live and thrive in life rather than to, you know, hide behind painlessness. Pain is the catalyst for change. It really is. When you go through something, man, tough, it's tough. It's challenging. Sometimes it hurts. But at the end of the day, it has made you a better person. And I'll end on this. This is sort of a paraphrase, but you've been in survival mode for so long that it has stopped serving you and has prevented you from thriving. And I've been in survival mode for so long that I've just been letting that run my life. But anyway, you've been watching New Leafs on Life.